Hello, Sarah Wells Rolland here at the Village Potter's Clay Center in Asheville, North Carolina. In this two-part series, I am going to throw a 1.5 pound bowl, and then in part 2, I'm going to show how to tap on center and trim it. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. So I am going to use very few tools to do this task. You can use either of these trimming tools. Actually, so many different kinds of trimming tools work. I want you to decide what works best for you. And then I've got a couple little metal ribs here to compress, a needle tool. I usually sign with the back end of that. Why? Because it's always around. And then I want a sponge with all the moisture wrung out of it, but it damp. So I'm going to show you real quickly with this 2.5 pound bowl how I'm going to trim it. You'll notice that the inside looks as if there's no transition, but right here, from here to here, is the flat part of this bowl. So I want a foot just a little bit further out than what's the flat part of the inside. So I turn it over, and you can tell that I got most of the clay up and into the pot. This is just going to require a little bit of trimming. So let's do it now. So I've set it on the bat, and you can tell it's way off center. But I'm going to give it a little tap, another little tap, and you can tell with these little taps, it's getting closer and closer to center until I get it going perfectly around. I'm almost there. There it is. And you always want to make sure when you cut your bowl off of the wheel that down here where you did your cutaway with your wood knife, that you have a nice on-centered definition, because you might be off-center down here, and I am just a little bit, but down here, up here at the foot is where it needs to be defined. Now, I recommend you plug this down with some clay. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Let me grab just a little bit, and we'll talk through that process. So you need just a small amount of clay out of your bag, not real wet clay, and you're going to roll it out in your hands or on a surface into a coil. There we go. Now, I'm going to take it and break it in half. Now, this is a small pot, so I'm not using a whole lot of clay. When you plug your pot in, you want to push it to the back first, and on the other side, to the back first. And then the last thing you do is bring it into the pot at the same time, and that will keep you from throwing your pot back off center. So I've got it hooked to the bat and then in. If you're using a Medex bat or something that absorbs moisture, you will have to moisten the bat a little bit to hold the clay down. All right, but in this case, this is a sealed bat. So I'm going to take my trimming tool and just right here take off a little bit of the rough edges there. And now I see a little bit of a bump out right there. I'm just going to clean it off that little bit. And if you learn how to use all your clay when you're throwing, you don't have a foot way out here that you have to trim in. You've already got it defined, and that is very rewarding. So now I'm cutting a wax line there. Do you see that? You can take your metal rib. In my case, I'm going to use the small one. And where I trimmed the outside of this pot, I'm going to compress those groggy clay particles back into the pot. Now, the only thing I have left that I need to do is address the foot. So I'm going to take my wonderful tool, and this is just a simple Kemper tool, and I'm going to gently, with my arms braced against me, my legs, my arm braced against my leg on the left side, I'm taking off just little things that are out of uniform with a flat floor. Sometimes the cutting wire will create a little bit of a problem, and you don't want that. Okay, so I took that off. I think I've got a pretty good flat floor now. One of the ways you can check is to take a flat edge. We'll use something like the edge of this wood knife and lay it on there and just make sure that you don't have any high edges so that this is sitting flat. And I'm in good shape. Now I'm going to compress the rib on its side across the floor. This has to be leather hard or your floor, if it's soft, is going to squish down in. And that means you haven't waited for the proper time to trim and assemble your pot. I'm softening the edges right here with a little compression of my finger. And then I'm going to take the back of my needle tool. Why? Because it's handy. And sign this. And I sign an S and an R. And there it is. I hope you enjoyed that demonstration of tapping on center and trimming a small little 1.5 pound bowl.